What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the On the Ball podcast. I'm your host, Pranav Free Raman, and I'm not joined by anybody today. We might be joined by Thomas Stapleton later today if he's figured something out. But make sure you guys go download our mobile app to be caught up on all the latest news, all the latest content. It's an easy, accessible way to get all of our content at one place. So please make sure to go download our mobile app. And with that being said, let's get right into the show. So we're going to start off with the two games that ended last night, the Game 7 between Oklahoma City and Houston, and the Game 2 between Miami and Milwaukee. Let us start off with Miami and Milwaukee. My thoughts on the game is that the officiating was absolutely terrible. Let's just get that out of the way. The officiating was absolutely horrendous, and it's a sentiment to how soft the NBA is becoming. Like, I hate to say that, but it's the truth. Because there was one foul call on the other end at the second to last play, the Milwaukee Bucks' last play, where Chris Middleton, Goran Dragic had his hands straight up, and Chris Middleton fell forward on purpose to draw a foul, which shouldn't have been a foul. I think everyone watching the game at home saw that it wasn't a foul. And Mark Davis, the ref who was standing right there, right next to the play, called a foul when it really shouldn't have been a foul in the first place. So we see that play happen. Fine. Let it go. Chris Middleton, it could have cost the Miami Heat a game, but Chris Middleton hits those three free throws. Next possession, Miami goes down the court. Final 3 seconds of the game, Jimmy Butler versus Giannis. The double team comes over to Butler, and Giannis makes slight contact with Jimmy Butler, and that puts Jimmy Butler at the free throw line. And those two free throws, which Jimmy Butler hit, won the game for the Miami Heat instead of going to overtime. And I think that was another horrendous call. Well, we could say that the basketball gods owed the Miami Heat one after, they got their opportunity was missed on the other end of the court. They got a foul going against them, so they had to get one back, let's say. But even then, it was a horrendous call with 0 seconds for that fact left in the game. The Miami Heat got a foul call, which ultimately sealed the fate for the Milwaukee Bucks in the game. And it was very minimal contact. I don't really see a reason why you call a foul. It's a playoff game. In other playoff games we've seen, the refs have let the other players play it out. But in this case, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat, the refs ultimately ruined this game. Thomas, what are your thoughts?
The Bucks are just.
We lost Thomas there, but eventually, let's hope he'll be back. But to conclude on that, there was a couple other things that went on as well. Giannis Antetokounmpo, despite all the narratives that's been floating around Twitter and all these social media platforms, Giannis Antetokounmpo actually had a pretty good game. He scored damn near 30 points. He had 29 points on 10 of 18 shooting, which is extremely efficient. Thomas, you're back with us. I'm going to let you resume what you were saying.
All right, I'm back. Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
So what were you saying about the Bucks and the Heat?
There's nothing to say about the Heat. The Heat have been thoroughly outplaying a Bucks team, and I was particularly low on them coming into this playoffs. I mean, I liked a lot of their individual players. I'm a big fan of Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Robinson, Jimmy Butler. But for whatever reason, I didn't really like their team, and I didn't think they had what it takes to make any serious noise in the East. But clearly I was wrong. This Bucks team Giannis has been playing great. Anyone who thinks Giannis has been playing bad is mistaken. Mm-hmm. It's just really been about.
It's absolutely. We'll get to it later, but it's absolutely ludicrous. We've seen people tweet. Even LeBron James has come to Giannis's defense. People are tweeting saying he should be the Pippen of this team. People don't realize this guy is about to be the back-to-back MVP, and he's currently the Defensive Player of the Year. To say he should be a Scottie Pippen of a championship team is absolutely ludicrous.
Exactly. And to me, it's just about the other guys. Chris Middleton has been solid, but not really what I'm looking for out of the second option. Mm-hmm. Brook Lopez has stepped up sometimes, but just the depth I don't know what the deal is. Like, for a team that looked like they had a pretty deep roster where they could comfortably play a bunch of guys, they're really, really struggling, and I really don't know what it is. And they are in serious danger to lose this series. I truly believe it. I think that the Bucks are going to have a great Game 3, but the Heat have their number. It's just that simple. They're walling up against Giannis, and it's working. And
Giannis is getting his own. Let's not act like the wall is working. It's just the other guys aren't playing to their standard. Yes, we understand Giannis struggled in Game 1, but Game 2, he was fantastic. I don't know what people's issue was with Giannis' performance, but he was fantastic. It's the other guys that need to step up. Wide open shots being missed while 4 guys are guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Exactly. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. That is why Giannis is not going to return to the Bucks when it's time for his free agency. Whether he goes to South Beach or Toronto or, I don't know, even Dallas. Let's say he pulls that. He is not going to return to this Milwaukee Bucks team that is really not that good, to be honest. Like, Chris Middleton was great in the regular season, but he's really, kind of fallen off in the playoffs as he did last year.
Same pace every year.
Yeah, and Bledsoe and Brook Lopez, Brook Lopez has been great this year. Eric Bledsoe has been solid, but those guys aren't really enticing pieces to make Giannis return. And I'm concerned for the Milwaukee Bucks. I am. I think I don't know what's going to happen, but they really need to step it up. They do.
Yeah, I know this will sound a little bit unpopular right now, but I still have the Bucks winning the series in 7. Listen, we've seen multiple times in the past teams come back from 2-0 leads. It's not even out of the stretch of imagination. I just don't see – I see Giannis Antetokounmpo coming back angry after this loss, after losing on a terrible call. Both calls in the final possession were awful, but I don't see Giannis Antetokounmpo losing the next game and the game after that as well. I think it'll be tied 2-2 at one point, or maybe 3-1. But I don't see Milwaukee losing. I just don't. I think we lost Thomas for a second. Hopefully he reconnects back. But I'll continue on that statement that right now the way things are going, Giannis returning to the Milwaukee Bucks isn't very optimistic. It's not looking very good right now. Obviously, if they make the finals, that's a different case. But right now, things are not going the Bucks' way at all. They might be looking to trade him in the offseason. Who knows? I don't see it happening. I think they'll run it back with Giannis one more time in hopes to get a championship. But I don't think he can win a championship in Milwaukee. It's not that the fact that people with these casual narratives on social media are calling him a Pippen. It's just the fact that he doesn't have a complimentary star good enough to be able to win a championship. Chris Middleton is a great player in this league. He is not a second option on a championship team. I'm sorry. He might be a great third option, but a second option, I don't see Chris Middleton filling that role. And moving on, I think we've covered pretty much everything from that game. We have to go this is painful for me as a Thunder fan. We have to talk about the Rockets versus Thunder, and it all boils down to the fourth quarter in this game. James Harden was absolutely horrendous on the offensive end, and if he lost this game, all the narratives would come back, and rightfully so, because he should not have lost this game. And he didn't. To his credit, he came up very clutch with the block on Luguent's door to finish off this game. But James Harden's legacy, everything he's done, would be in question if he lost this game. Listen, Oklahoma City traded Russell Westbrook.
For now?
Yeah. You back? But Oklahoma City, they traded Russell Westbrook and acquired a better point guard and 2 first-round picks. And the better point guard almost beat Russell Westbrook and James Harden, 2 former MVPs, in the series, and it came down to the last possession. We'll talk about the last possession in a minute, but we have to talk about the whole game. The Rockets basically let Lou Dort get his. Lou Dort was absolutely sensational all night. He had 30 points on extremely efficient shooting in 6 of his threes, along with 10 shots on the game. Like I mentioned, James Harden was awful on the offensive end, but all in all, we have to get to the fourth quarter, and down the stretch, Oklahoma City, who we've seen as this most clutch team in the NBA. I think Clutch is kind of an overrated narrative. But we've seen that per numbers, they're the most clutch team in the NBA, and they didn't prove it. They had multiple chances. Houston basically gave them that game on a platter. Russell Westbrook was breaking shots on the other end of the court, left and right. James Harden couldn't make a shot. And just the Houston Rockets put the Oklahoma City Thunder in perfect position to steal this game. But the Oklahoma City Thunder could not execute on the offensive end. You saw Chris Paul missing a wide open mid-range shot. That's not what we're accustomed to seeing. We saw Dennis Schroeder miss a three-pointer. We saw Steven Adams just absolutely play terrible all night, just running up and down the court. The Oklahoma City Thunder failed to execute when it mattered most, which is surprising because they've been the best at executing under pressure all season. But ultimately, let's get to the final play. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steven Adams absolutely botched his play up by running towards the ball. I watched some film on it, and Steven Adams should have cut towards the basket. Shai could have made him that pass, or Shai could have found Dennis Schroeder, who was wide open on the three-point line. But all in all, the Oklahoma City Thunder just couldn't execute down the stretch, and that's ultimately what led them to lose this game and lose this series. It's due to their late-game execution that didn't come up when they needed it most. Moving on, let's get to the Western Conference second-round predictions. And, guys, we have two series right now. We have the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Denver Nuggets, and the LA Lakers versus the Houston Rockets. For the Clippers versus Nuggets series, I don't see the series taking too long. I see the Clippers running an easy 5. Listen, they faced much tougher competition in the Dallas Mavericks. They faced Luka Doncic, who's better than any player the Nuggets have to offer, despite how great Jamal Murray has been this playoffs, despite how great Nikola Jokic has been this playoffs. None of them compared to what Luka Doncic brings on the basketball court. None of them can will a team as far. Maybe they can make it a little challenging. Maybe they can. I could see Denver winning a game, but that's at the max. I think that's all they can get. Denver is just not on the same level as the Los Angeles Clippers, and I feel that the power of Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, he might have a bounce-back series. Who knows? You could never really tell with Paul George in the playoffs, but I think Kawhi Leonard's greatness will take him past the Denver Nuggets and lead them into the conference finals. And for the Lakers versus Rockets series, listen, I have the Lakers winning in 6, but this is going to be a tough series. I can't even lie. What you saw in the Oklahoma City-Houston series should not affect the way you feel about the Lakers versus the Rockets. It's two completely different series, two completely different game plans. The Lakers should win the series. I have them winning in 6, but don't be surprised if the Rockets steal this one. I don't expect it to happen, but don't be surprised. Their small ball offense is that lethal and that potent, and they could just fire across the court. And what the surprising part throughout all of this playoffs is they're the number 1 ranked defensive team in the playoffs right now. Per defensive rating, they're the number 1 ranked defense in the playoffs. Their defense has come alive. Obviously, we understand that Anthony Davis is the one glaring mismatch on the basketball court. But in their previous matchups, PJ Tucker has held them to inefficient shootings and low scoring totals. So maybe I don't see that happening for a whole series, which is why I have the Lakers predominantly winning this series. But I would not be shocked if Houston steals this one, just because of their offensive firepower and how their defense has come alive down the stretch in these playoffs and in the bubble in general. Their defense has kicked it up a notch, and that's no credit to Mike D'Antoni. That's credit to their defensive coaching, which is not coached by Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni has to step it up. His offense has not been that good in the playoffs, and Houston's recipe for success has to be their offensive game. Moving on, let's get to the Boston Celtics versus Toronto Raptors. I think we covered the series the other day, but guys, listen, I think the series is all but over. The series is all but over. The game is going on right now. The Celtics are leading. Kemba Walker is absolutely going off, but the series is all but over. Listen. Boston just has too much firepower. Toronto's star and Pascal Siakam, who Thomas and Jeff spoke very highly about last game, has the least amount of offensive versatility. I mean, awful offensive versatility from any other star in the league. I believe Kyle Lowry is the best player on that team, and down the stretch, they should give the ball to Kyle Lowry, but they're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. They're just letting Pascal Siakam do the same one move, which is drive to the paint, spin, and just see what happens. He makes 45% of those. I mean, it's not a very good recipe for success. I think they have to run the offense through Kyle Lowry and through Fred VanVleet, or run the motion offense instead of running through Pascal Siakam, because that offense will not win. I'm sorry. In this league, you will not win. They're on the verge of getting swept, in my opinion. I had the series going to 7, but honestly, that just seems like a joke at this point. I had Boston winning, but I had them winning in 7. But that seems like a joke at this point based on how the Raptors have played. And for Boston, they're looking absolutely sensational, rolling on all figures. When Toronto switches their game plan for Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker's going off. When they switch it for Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum's going off. You see the trend? So you see that when Boston, one of their stars is neutralized by Toronto's defense, they have so much offensive firepower that it can make up for what that star is lacking on a certain night. And you have to realize Marcus Smart has stepped up in the biggest way that they could have asked him to. He scored 19 points last game, had 5 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. I know that's unrealistic. You don't see that every day from Marcus Smart. But with a combined total of 19 points, with Robert Williams 11 points, you see what I'm getting to? Their combined scoring total can make up for what they're missing in Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward is their best bench option. We all know that. He is one of the better bench options in the league. He scores about 17 points per game. And Marcus Smart's recent performance, along with Robert Williams' emergence, just getting dunks, hook shots, on lobs, cutting to the basket, all of those points are regained. And that really shows that this Boston team has a variety of ways to score, and it just makes them so lethal in terms of offense. And moving on, I think we've covered pretty much everything we had to talk about that series. It's pretty much all but over, in my opinion. I think Boston is pretty easily going to either win this series in 4 or 5, that max at this point, just based on how terrible Toronto's been playing from their star, Pascal Siakam. But moving on, we had news today. And that is Hall of Fame point guard Steve Nash has signed to become the new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. He will be coaching Kevin Durant. He will be reunited with Kevin Durant. He was a consultant for Golden State last year. He will be reunited with Kevin Durant. He'll be coaching Kyrie Irving in that Nets squad. And man, I absolutely love this move. Listen. Steve Nash, you could say that he's inexperienced as a coach. Valid. You could say that there are probably better coaching candidates. Also valid. You could say they shouldn't have brought in a rookie head coach for a team that has championship expectations. That's kind of a valid point, but valid. We've seen it work before. Steve Kerr, Golden State, wins a championship his first year, goes to 5 straight finals, and wins 3 championships, becomes a dynasty. We could see it. And although there are other coaches on the market who are all phenomenal coaches, they've not really proven that they can lead their team to a championship, other than Tyron Lue. And for the most part, I'm not discrediting Tyron Lue at all. I don't want to sound like a hater on this channel, but that was mostly because of LeBron James. You saw that without LeBron James. I know the Cavaliers team was absolutely terrible that year, but he went 0-5 to start off the season. And his record without LeBron James is just absolutely terrible. I think we all know as a public, even though not most people admit it, LeBron James was a leading catalyst for that team's success, not really Tyron Lue. But Tyron Lue did sign with the 76ers, which is an interesting move. He's a good player's coach, and he'll be good for Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. But for a team like Brooklyn, Kyrie Irving has been coached by Tyron Lue. Kevin Durant has played against Tyron Lue. That should give you an indication. They signed off on having Steve Nash. They said to Sean Marks, we want this guy as our head coach, this Hall of Fame point guard who actually has the experience, who can actually get under people's skull. He can actually put pressure on players to step the hell up when they need to. Not Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving necessarily, but the other guys. He can coach them in the best way possible because of his experience as a player. He's extremely high in IQ, one of the smartest basketball minds you'll see. I think most people can see that if you even watch like 30 seconds of tape of Steve Nash. You can see that he's one of the smartest players who's ever lived on a basketball court. And he'll just be a terrific fit. Kyrie Irving is well with him. Kevin Durant knows him well. They signed off on having him over Tyron Lue, over Mark Jackson, over all these other guys. They wanted Steve Nash as their head coach, and there has to be a clear reason why they wanted that to happen. Moving on to more pressing matters. We need to talk about what the Oklahoma City Thunder can do as their future plan moving forward. What are they going to do moving forward after this season? We saw that they went on this terrific run. Major props to Billy Donovan, Sam Presti, Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the whole crew. What are they going to do moving forward? I know as a Thunder fan, I got a little sad seeing Chris Paul kind of giving his goodbye speech, and I don't want him to leave, but in reality, that's most likely what's going to happen. Chris Paul is most likely going to find his way out, and his trade value has massively improved this season. Compared to what he's got last season, his trade value has massively increased due to what he did this season. Possibly, in my opinion, he should have been an MVP candidate, but based on what he's done this season, I think Chris Paul's trade value is at an all-time, not necessarily an all-time high, but it was much higher than what the Oklahoma City Thunder acquired him for, which was only Russell Westbrook, and they got 2 first-rounders with him. But for the Thunder, they can either do two things. Well, the first one's unrealistic. Well, somewhat unrealistic, but that is to acquire another star. Acquire another star via trade. You have 23 draft picks in your war chest of draft picks. You have 23. All of those assets. You have a young core. I know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is probably untouchable, but you have the emerging star Lou Dort, Darius Bazley, Hamidou Diallo, Terrence Ferguson. Those are valuable trade assets. Danilo Gallinari is entering free agency. Maybe you could do a sign and trade with him. Steven Adams is on a terrible contract right now. You probably want to get rid of him as much as possible. But the Oklahoma City Thunder should either do one thing, package all those players for another star. Giannis is probably out of the reach, but knowing how much draft picks and draft capital Oklahoma City has, maybe they're the only team that can force Milwaukee's hand. But they can either acquire another star or another mid-tier player and become competitors. For me, as a Thunder fan, I do not want any other star unless that star is a top 5 player. Meaning if that star is not LeBron James, not Stephen Curry, not Kevin Durant, not Kawhi Leonard, and not Giannis Antetokounmpo, maybe even Anthony Davis or James Harden, which none of those players are going to be on the trading block except potentially Giannis. I don't want them. I don't want them on the roster. And so that leads to option number 2, which is trading Chris Paul, trading all the vets, getting rid of Schroeder, just going on a full rebuild. This run was great. It was wonderful. It was one of my favorite seasons to watch as an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. But at the end of the day, the future is what matters more. You want to try to tank to get better draft capital, better draft picks, better positions to win actual championships instead of losing in the first round in the future. The plan is for the future. And so as heartbreaking as it is, I think you move on from all of that and start over. Finally, we're reaching our last topic of the show, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo overrated? And I know this show so far hasn't been what we expected with we most likely would have had Thomas here, so he would have given his thoughts and opinions, and it would have been twice as long. But Giannis Antetokounmpo is not overrated if you don't overrate him. And some of my co-hosts have done this before. I've told them multiple times, I don't know if that's true. No, I know very well that it's not true. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a top 5 player in my opinion, but he's number 5. He's not better than Steph Curry. He's not. He's not better than LeBron James. He's not better than Kevin Durant when he's healthy. And he's not better than Kawhi Leonard. It's just that simple. He's not on those guys' level. Not yet. because he hasn't shown it in the playoffs. In the regular season, if you're going based off regular season, Giannis Antetokounmpo is easily the greatest player in the league. Outside, maybe it's tough competition between LeBron James and Steph Curry, but Giannis Antetokounmpo is easily the best player in the league if you're going just based off regular season. If you're taking the past 2 years, but in the playoffs, he's failed to show up. He's been limited. The perimeter defense has gotten to him. He can't create half-court offense. A guy I've talked to multiple times, he works for our company, Daniel Alameda. He said it perfectly. Until Giannis can generate half-court offense, he will not be the number one option on a championship team. And that's true. He can win a ring, but until he creates half-court offense, he won't be the number one. Let's say he goes to Golden State. He can win a ring. That won't be his team. That's Steph Curry's team. Let's say he goes to Miami. There's another guy in Jimmy Butler who can create that half-court offense. And so Giannis would be the number one, but he needs someone who can create for him to win a championship until he does that himself. So, yes, there's multiple casual narratives floating around NBA circles that Giannis should be this Pippen of a team. Giannis isn't that good. He's overrated, which is absolutely ludicrous. Last night he played great. For game one, we understand he struggled. But these narratives about Giannis being a Pippen is absolutely ridiculous. I think Scottie Pippen and LeBron James both commented on today. Scottie Pippen said, Giannis is not me. He's about to be a two-time MVP, one-time Defensive Player of the Year at 25 years old. He has so much time to improve. He's only 25. I don't think people realize that. He's the youngest player in the top five. But it comes with greatness. It comes with greatness that people are going to cause casual narratives around you, narratives that are absolutely lazy and untrue. Like the other day, people were asking Giannis, hey, why didn't you go be a help defender on Jimmy Butler? Giannis said, I did what coach had to tell me to do. Yesterday, he became the help defender on Jimmy Butler. And unfortunately, he got a terrible foul called on him. And then the narrative switched. It doesn't make any sense. Giannis played great. There's been so many different narratives. The media will try to change it for their agenda about Giannis just to come up with topics. But at the end of the day, listen, he's only overrated if you overrate him. He is not greater than any player in the top four, and that's not debatable at all until he can get it done in the playoffs and do it at the highest level. It's not even that he has to win a championship to be the best player on the planet. You do not have to win a champion. We saw LeBron James going up against the Golden State Warriors multiple years in a row, and he was the best player in the world despite losing. You don't have to be the best player in the world by winning a championship. No, it has to do with your production, and neither Giannis hasn't been winning in the playoffs, and he hasn't had consistent enough production. Like, he's had good production, but it's the same case with James Harden. He rises from MVP levels in the regular season and goes to an all-star, and he needs to become an MVP once again in the playoffs if the Bucks want to win a championship and if Giannis wants to be recognized as the greatest player in the world and recognized as holding that title moving forward. That's it for this episode. I'm out for now, y'all. Peace.
Is this the dagger?